Motoring 2012 on TSN is brought to you by Michelin, a better way forward.
Being here in the Lone Star State of Texas has reminded me of a couple of old sayings. What goes around comes around, and what's old is new again. And that's particularly true in the world of fashion, or at least that's what they tell me. But what about the automotive world? Well, cars are obviously built better today, but many think they were much more stylish in the old days. However, car companies do pay homage to their heritage, but in different ways. GM, for instance, brought back the Camaro, but they ditched Pontiac and Oldsmobile. But across the street at Chrysler, they went deep into the archives, the Challenger, the Charger, the 300. And believe me, they had a lot of success with those cars. But now we go to the Detroit Auto Show as the old is new theme continues with the introduction of the Dodge Dart. Well, if you're looking for nostalgia, you weren't going to get it. Why is that? Well, we're going to try and find out this week and also get our first drive behind the wheel of the 2013 Dodge Dart.
The Dart was a great car for Chrysler. Very popular. We ran it for, I think, 16 years.
The Dart was Chrysler's bread and butter car. It really was the car that your grandmother had one, your uncle had one, everybody knew someone that had one.
I remember I used to fix the original Darts, and my goodness, they were one of the worst cars I've ever had to fix. The distributor was right by the front wheel. You drove through a puddle, it stalled. Hopefully that's not going to be the case with the new car. The only thing it's got in common with its ancestor is the name.
So far, this year, through 3 months, we're actually #1 auto seller in Canada. But you're right, we've done that all without a compact car, and the compact car segment in Canada is 23% of the volume. So we're really excited at Chrysler. We see this as a huge opportunity for us to bring a very competitive compact car to the market in Canada, where we know there are a lot of customers that buy compact vehicles.
This vehicle is based off the Alfa Romeo Giulietta platform. That Alfa Romeo is really known for performance and driving dynamics. We really feel we got a nice package for this vehicle. The original Dart was an affordable vehicle. This Dart comes in at $15,995 as a starting point, which has a lot of value to it from a price standpoint, but from a content standpoint, it comes with a lot of great entry-level features as well. Keyless entry, projector headlamps, 4-wheel ABS disc brakes, which you don't find in a lot of the competition, 10 standard airbags, which is unsurpassed in the segment. So again, we're really packing a lot of value in all the price lines in this vehicle. And again, we think at $15,995, it's a great starting point for the Canadian market.
Putting out a base car without air conditioning, I'm not going to call it bait and switch, but I think it's pretty close. You're going to go in for the $16,000 car, you're going to come out with something more expensive. And the fact that you can order Bluetooth in it, but you can't get air conditioning, that seems a little odd.
My favorite view of the new Dodge Dart is back here. You know, I'm always telling you that when you test drive a vehicle, spend some time with the car at night. This is a good example as to why. Along here are 152 LED lights on this strip, and believe me, at night it looks very cool. What is not cool is that there are some fit and finish issues with this vehicle, especially back here in the trunk region. But in fairness to Chrysler, this is a pre-production vehicle. I'm sure these things will be resolved by the time this car hits the showroom. I hope. Now, one more thing. I know you're going to say, Brad, we've heard this before. Hey, I'm here just as the messenger, okay? But why can't all car companies put a latch in the trunk? Now, speaking of the trunk, I'd like to show it to you, but the key's in the car and I don't have a latch. However, through the magic of television, let's have a look inside with the seats folded down.
We have 3 powertrains that are available with it, along with 3 transmissions. We start with a 2-liter Tiger Shark 4-cylinder that's mated with a 6-speed manual. We have a 6-speed automatic available with it as well. We have the 1.4 turbo multi-air that's available with the 6-speed or the dual dry clutch transmission, and then finally a 2.4-liter multi-air as well that sits in our RT.
Why they're producing the 2-liter engine? No idea, because anybody with any sense will opt for the 1.4-liter turbo. You get much more torque over a much broader speed range of the engine, and you get better fuel economy. So why tinker around with the base engine other than to bring the car in at a base price?
Part of the appeal of the Challenger and Charger was that both cars resembled their namesakes. But with the Dart, except for the name, this car does not resemble its predecessor in any way, shape, or form. The question is why, and also, will this disappoint some people that used to own a Dart?
We own a 1966 Dodge Dart convertible. I'm really not upset about it because the Dart was never really a hot commodity at Chrysler. It was the car that got you around, got your groceries, things like that. It wasn't really a styling icon. And so what they've done is they've taken a name that everybody knows. It was a good little reliable car. And they've put it onto something that, again, they want people to think that this is a good, reliable little car.
We've driven it fairly extensively, and two things came through loud and clear. The European influence is there for everybody to enjoy. The steering is as good as anything that comes from Europe. It's got the right weight, the right feel, the input is unerring in its precision. It really has been done exceptionally well. It's got a very refined ride for something that is basically entry level.
I think they've got a winner on their hands. The steering and the handling are incredible. I've only driven the 2-liter at the moment, but it's a nice, strong engine. It feels really nice on the road. The interior is amazing. Chrysler used to have the worst interiors in the industry. It's bank vault quiet. I think that they're going to be a real contender in this very crowded segment.
Sometimes when you do the math, 2 into 1 doesn't go. More later on Kenzie's Corner.
It's big, it's bold, it's brash. On this edition of Test Drive, the Lincoln MKT.
The latest Lincoln MKT wears the company's new split-wing front grille, a distinctive design cue that will roll out across the entire lineup. The other thing that struck me is just how far Lincoln has come in so few years. Look at the Lincoln Town Car and it's as technologically moribund as any car on the road today. The MKT, on the other hand, is loaded with leading-edge technologies, all of which are designed to make the driver's life easier and/or safer.
So there you have it, a car that can park all by itself. The beauty of this Lincoln system is its simplicity. The Lexus system, there's a lot to do before the car will park. This thing, you simply push a button and all the driver has to do is use the brake pedal to control speed. The beauty of the whole system is if you combine this ability with adaptive cruise control. Now it will pace the car ahead. If it slows, so does this car. If it stops, so does this car. You have the ability to start, stop and steer. How long before the driver becomes redundant?
The MKT is powered by Lincoln's 3.5-litre EcoBoost engine. With the twin turbos blowing full gale, this engine puts forth 365 horsepower and, more importantly, 350 pound-feet of torque at just 1500 RPM. This gives the heavy MKT a spirited launch off the line. In fact, it scampers to 100k in 7.5 seconds and manages the more important 80 to 120 passing move in 5.5 seconds. All of the power is relayed to the road through a 6-speed manumatic with paddle shifters and a very competent all-wheel drive system. In normal driving conditions, the system powers the front wheels. However, the instant it detects a problem, it sends power rearward in just 16 milliseconds. As such, it's proactive in all but name.
Torque, great interior design, and it's right here inside this MKT. To begin with, the materials are absolutely superb, but more importantly, everything is touch sensitive. You swipe to change the fan speed, you swipe to change the volume. This screen here is all touch sensitive and you can access navigation, phone, entertainment and climate all simply by touching the screen. Then you get to the instrumentation and this really is very nice indeed. There's 2 separate screens. The one on the right, it again looks after the phone, climate, entertainment and so on. The one on the left, well, it allows you to customize the gauge packages and set the vehicle up. It really is first class.
One of the reasons the MKT balances the ride handling equation so well is its continuously controlled damping. It allows the driver to pick comfort, normal and sport modes.
The system monitors the suspension 500 times a second and makes the necessary real-time adjustments anywhere between 20 and 50 times a second to deliver controlled handling and a smooth ride. It certainly had the desired effect, as the amount of body roll for such a large vehicle was limited to a handful of degrees. It also manages to deliver a very smooth ride. There's also a sport mode for the transmission. Now it locks out 6th gear, so if the driver does not upshift manually, kiss your fuel economy goodbye. The back end of this MKT is not only cavernous, it was designed for the lazy man. You simply kick the underside of the bumper and Bob's your uncle, the tailgate powers open. Now with all 3 rows in the upright position, you have about 18 cubic feet of cargo space. Push one button and the 3rd row automatically powers down into the floor, which speaks to the lazy man thing yet again. Now with these seats folded down, you open up about 40 cubic feet, and if you fold the center row down as well, that number grows to 79 cubic feet of cargo space. And just for good measure, there's a fridge along for the ride. If you're into technology, the MKT comes with a boatload that goes well beyond the ability to park itself. It's such that the MKT delivers more than some of its more expensive competitors. The Tester arrived with adaptive cruise control, a backup camera that also warns the driver if there's cross traffic when backing out of a blind spot, as well as My Key, which allows the driver to limit the MKT's capability when Junior takes the keys, along with lane departure warning and blind spot monitoring. Now the latter is important because the MKT's sightlines, well, they're not all they should be. They labelled the Pontiac Aztek as the original SUV. This thing comes a very close second, and by SUV I don't mean sport utility vehicle, I mean seriously ugly vehicle. The saving grace in this case, it has a lot of inner beauty.
You know, I respect my elders, but maybe it's time that they grew up. I'm Howard Elmer, and I'll tell you why at motoringtv.com.
Some of our viewers may not recognize this vehicle, but it is a Lada. And you know, even our comrades in Russia have enough capitalistic sense to realize that when sales are down 76% as they were for the Lada last year, maybe it's time to pull the plug and end production. And that's exactly what they've done. Now, what you're looking at now is an early test drive by a young Graham Fletcher of the Lada in 1994.
This Lada is truly horrible through the pylon test. Now it's partly because of the amount of body roll, but it's also down to the fact that this tiny steering wheel is really Mickey Mouse and very difficult to handle.
I'll actually never forget that test drive because it was probably one of the most challenging I've ever had to do. When we picked the car up, it stalled, it had clutch chutter like you could not believe, and the right rear door was jammed shut.
There's an old saying, you should never judge a book by its cover. Well, this Lada is a classic example because from afar things look quite nice. However, closer examination reveals a very different story. The quality of the materials used throughout the car is poor to say the least, and the quality of the fit and finish, well, it's quite simply laughable. The fit and finish problems were numerous to say the least. The gap between the hood and fender is huge, the fender flares were buckled and poorly attached, the door panels were loose, the right rear door jammed shut, the entire rear light cluster had been installed at an angle, and the rear valance looked ready to drop off, one of the corners already broken. The very poor choice of interior materials was highlighted by the dash.
I took it back, in fairness, to give them a shot at fixing it all. Their solution was to crank the idle up so it revved at about 1800 RPM when you're sitting at a traffic light, and they didn't fix the rear door. It was utter junk.
The trunk on this new Segona is quite large and quite well laid out. However, like the rest of the car, it has its shortcomings too. There's nothing down here to protect the spare tyre. If you buy this car, do yourself a favour. Go to the hardware store and buy a piece of hardboard and fit it in underneath the carpet. That way, the next time you drop something heavy in there, you won't wipe out the sidewall.
One of the funny things, and it never made it to the test drive, but the vehicle we drove was the Lada Sagona. And my Italian buddy said, you know why they call it the Sagona? And I said, no idea. He said, because it's gonna break it down a lot. No.
That was great. That was great. It's true.
You know, Graham should take his act on the road for sure. All right, let's join Bill Gardner with his motoring tip of the week.
Our motoring tip of the week concerns washer fluid selection. You go in that auto parts department, there's a huge array of washer fluids to choose from. And in the spring and summer, you've also got fluids on the shelf that don't offer freeze protection. They dissolve bugs and grime, but no freeze protection whatsoever. And I really don't like to see people using those products. Reason is that modern cars will typically hold an entire jug of washer fluid, sometimes more. And what'll happen is you put this washer fluid in with no freeze protection, you use 1/3 of the bottle during the summertime. Along comes November, sub-zero day, the washer fluid bottle is frozen solid like a rock, and it's difficult to get that fluid out of there. Now on newer cars, you'll find the washer fluid bottle is hidden. It's down in the inner fender, it's not accessible, and it's difficult to drain that fluid out, especially when it's solid. It's frozen like a rock. So I would stay away from washer fluids that have no freeze protection. They're less money, it's tempting to use them in the summer. Some people even like to top up with water, but it's bad news in the fall. Now, if you use a fluid like this year round, you get the washer fluid, it's got detergent in it, so it cuts grease and grime in the summertime, gets those bugs off there, and it has -45 freeze protection, and you never have to worry about how much is in there, if it's ever going to freeze come next fall. It's mindless, it's painless, it works. You also have high performance fluids like this one that offer better performance in the really cold months of the winter. These will actually dissolve a little bit of frost and a light film of ice off your windshield even before the defrost heat gets to the windshield. These are about $1 a jug more, well worth it in the coldest months of the winter. One more tip. Even if you're using quality washer fluid, it really helps to start with a perfectly clean windshield. So get your glass cleaner and clean all your glass surfaces inside and out. And that'll help you early in the morning and late at night when you're getting that glare from the sun off the windshield. And one more tip, take your full strength glass cleaner or washer fluid and wipe that rubber element on your wiper blades. You'll always find some crud on there. That'll help your performance and your vision as well. That's your motoring tip of the week.
How cool is my ride? It's got 5 TV screens and a completely customized interior from the floor all the way up to the headliner. I am Steve Luang Pakdi, and this is my 2001 highly modified Nissan Sentra. I purchased this car completely stock back in 2005. I only really used it to get to and from school. The modifications started not too long after. It started off with rims, suspension, paint, and 25 grand later, the rest is history. Here are some cool features that make my car unique. I've got 5 screens, 2 in the sun visor, and I've even got 1 in my trunk. I've got a fiberglass stereo with 2 12-inch subs, custom door panels, which are one of a kind, and I've even got a catback exhaust, which adds to an already great looking car. At a car show, I was once asked to write down all my modifications. I ended up handing in 3 pieces of paper. I built this car to describe my personality, and I definitely nailed it.
Closed captioning of Motoring 2012 is brought to you by
Greener, fuel efficient, global. This is Chevrolet Now, driving our world forward.
I was driving with my darling wife, Lady Leadfoot, the other day, going along a highway that actually had a high occupancy vehicle lane. Now, some of these lanes work with only 2 people in the car, which means you can carpool in a Miata. We happen to have a Miata, so that's pretty cool. That got me to thinking, though, what is the purpose of HOV lanes? As I see it, there are 2 reasons for HOV lanes. One is to try and reduce congestion and try and reduce usage of fuel. Get more people in the same car, it's better bang for your buck. But then it occurred to me, if you're driving in a 640 horsepower Corvette ZR1 with using about the same amount of fuel, a dinosaur's worth of fuel every meter, but you got somebody else in the car, you can use the HOV lane. But if you're driving in a little smart car that's about half the size of the Corvette and uses about a 50th of the fuel, you can't. Does that make any sense? It doesn't make any sense to me. As a matter of fact, the whole point of HOV lanes seems to me to not exist. I mean, if the idea is to encourage people to carpool, wouldn't you expect there to be more people in the HOV lanes than there are? Because most of the time, there's almost nobody in there. So if they're not working, why do we have them? I think everybody on that road has paid taxes to use all of those lanes. If we took that one lane and divided it up to everybody who's on the highway, wouldn't we all get home faster? I'm Jim Kenzie.
With the exception of the name, the new Dodge Dart is not going to evoke any feelings of nostalgia among the older generation. However, Chrysler will be happy to know that the Dart is not a Caliber and it's certainly not a Neon. This car is spanking new out of the box, and that Alfa Romeo DNA makes it just a pleasure to drive, and the interior on all trim levels is something you'd expect from a much more expensive vehicle. The question is, will the lack of a hatchback hurt this car, especially in Canada? Time will tell. But for Chrysler, the important thing is this: 350,000 vehicles make up the compact market in Canada, and it believes for the first time it has a real shot at taking a large slice of that lucrative pie. Before we go, make sure you check us out at motoringtv.com, and remember, we want to hear from you, so get in on the conversation by joining us on Facebook and Twitter for the total motoring experience. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
It kind of speaks to you as you're going through the corners. It's not scary at all. It's a really kind of an intelligent car.
Motoring 2012 on TSN has been brought to you by Michelin, a better way forward.